Senate Republicans has set up a potential fight with the House following massive changes to the president's tax bill. A sticking point in the House, raising the state and local tax deduction to $40,000. The Senate would like it to remain where it is at $10,000. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Nick LaLota. Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning. You can make the case for $40,000. Can you make the case for taking? Can you make the case for taking it off completely?
Yeah, well, a lot has been discussed. First off, good to be on with you. Long-time viewer, first-time guest, so good to be with you this morning. Yes, $40,000 is the number that the House ultimately compromised on. Some, like me, wanted more. Others wanted less, but ultimately we compromised to get to $40,000, a number that in a district like mine in suburban New York satisfies 92% of my constituents, makes them completely whole. It doesn't get all the way to the remaining 8%, but that's the harmony that we struck in order to unleash everything else in the bill. The reduced taxes on overtime, reduced taxes on tips, reduced taxes on Social Security, extending the rest of the tax cuts. But here's the reality. The 2017 Trump tax cuts expire at the end of the year, and when they expire, unlimited SALT comes back. So in order to extend the cuts, some are advocating for some cap on SALT, and we're being reasonable about that. And the $40,000 number strikes the right harmony, in my opinion, Joe, on what is both good for my constituents and good for the country.
You're just a absolutist. It should be zero. Why should anyone be double taxed? If you've paid federal taxes, you should be able to deduct what you've already paid. But that's never going to happen at this point. But this half measure, I'm not sure why 40,000, why that cap makes sense, other than it just helps the people in your state.
The SALT deduction is rooted in fundamentals like anti-double taxation and federalism. And an unlimited SALT deduction was the rule, was the law of the land for 100 years before 2017. And then the low $10,000 unfair cap was implemented in 2017. And while my constituents benefited from, and America as a whole benefited from, the lower individual rates, the lower corporate rates, the other fixes within the tax code from the 2017 bill, my constituents and the suburban constituents from these high tax and high earning blue states had that success, had those benefits throttled by the low cap on SALT. Some are advocating, I think this is what you're saying, for unlimited on SALT. But in order to, an unlimited SALT would cost $1.3 trillion over 10 years. In order to unleash the lower individual rates, keep the lower business rates, the AMT fix, those in 2017 thought to cap SALT in order to unleash these other things. That's the harmony they struck in 2017. We need a better harmony now. The political math is different. They need votes from districts like mine in order to pass the bill. I need to ensure that my middle-class constituents especially get made whole on SALT.
Well, you know how purists think. It's like, well, wait a second. You've already spent the money, so we can't. So the taxes are already gone. They would say the government used to be 7% of GDP. I know it'll never be there again. But talking about, well, we got to cover, we got to use this, SALT provision to cover the money that we've already spent that we probably shouldn't be spending. What about the Medicaid stuff in the Senate bill? A lot of people think that is probably a better way to make sure that states that are able to game the system for people that don't necessarily need it, or they get compensated more for healthy people of working age than people with disabilities and pregnant women. What about what the Senate is looking at there? They're solving that, and it wasn't solved in the House.
Yeah, I think the House bill struck a good balance on that, Joe. First off, the focus is on ensuring that able-bodied adults go to work or seek work or volunteer 80 hours a month. That ought not to be a partisan issue. That ought not to be a divisive issue. That's common sense. Even Bill Clinton supported something very much similar to that. That's the key element on Medicaid in the House bill. We went further to say that illegal immigrants shouldn't benefit from Medicaid as well. Those are the two hallmark issues in the House bill. We'll see where the Senate bill ultimately irons out. I don't see how they get the 50+1 votes for those sorts of reforms you described there. So I'm not yet sure on how real that is. But there's a hell of a lot of consensus, both within the Republican conference and within the country, on work for able-bodied adults and getting the illegals off. That just makes sense. That ought to be bipartisan. I think that's ultimately where the bill lands on Medicaid, Joe.
So when it comes back to the House, is it going to pass?
I hope so. I hope so. I think America needs this one big, beautiful bill. I think that both your viewers, the business community, the Main Street folks, we want stability. We want predictability. We hope to be able to give it to them very soon, hopefully in the next few weeks, if not the next few months. I think the bill should pass. The House bill is good. The House bill is represented by folks who represent districts that Trump won by 50 to Harris by a couple. It represents a broad diversity of thought that went into it. I hope the Senate doesn't futz with it too much. If it does, we risk tanking the bill. The House bill as is puts us on a right track, Joe.